now. And
this is modern coastlines.
This is modern coastlines. And now I'm gonna jump to, this is actually only 300 feet lower than now, and quite a bit different. Let's just look at the United States, North America.
That's amazing. There's a lot more United States.
Yeah, now check this out. Okay, now here's North America as it is now. And you see up here, this is the Bering Strait right here between Alaska and Siberia, right? During the Ice Age, this whole area was exposed because of the lowered sea level. And we'll go one slide further and you will see. Take a look now. Watch what happens up there in Beringia. Boom.
Wow, so it's all land.
It's all land, and it's connecting North America to Siberia, and that's all drowned.
Wow, I didn't understand that. See, I always thought that the Bering Strait was an ice mass. I thought it was during the Ice Age that there was some sort of...
yes.
That it was ice, but it's not. It's land.
No, it's land.
Wow.
And it's not glaciated. And it was home to these extraordinary herds of megamammals that ranged over these thousands and thousands of square miles. I mean, the drowned area is bigger than modern Alaska.
So how long ago is this?
Well, this is, right at the end, up till the end of the Ice Age. Between like 14,000, 15,000 years ago.
So 14,000, 15,000 years ago, no glaciers in this area. This is all just land, and there's animals living in it, and people are walking back and forth. Essentially, it was a continent. It was connected. It was all one continent. It was all one
continent.
Wow, that's amazing.
And the coastlines of the world, look at Florida down here.
Wow.
It's double the width of the modern peninsula.
Yeah, it's enormous. And it's so close to Mexico, too. It's almost like a little boat ride.
Now, here is Indonesia, and, where stories, which I don't know how credible they are, but, there are stories like Lemuria in the Pacific and all of that. Again, I don't know how credible those are. I think the Atlantis story actually has a little more credibility. We talked about that last time somewhat. But here's the modern, and you can see the light blue is the coastal shelf area, right? Now, let's go back. We're going to drop sea level 300 feet, and then you'll see here the enormous change.
Whoa.
So again, enormous areas of land were drowned by the rising sea levels. Remember this. Now, when we look at the rise of modern cities and modern civilizations, where did they first show up?
On the coasts.
On the coasts, right, at the mouths of rivers, on the coastlines. And during the Ice Age, where would have been the most obvious prime habitable real estate, down close to sea level, right? So if there were cities built, if there were thriving communities during the Ice Age, they're now 400 feet under the water.
It's so amazing that all of these stories of floods, the Epic of Gilgamesh, Noah's Ark, that all of these stories seem to really correlate with all this data. They all seem to coincide.
That's exactly the point.
It's so weird. Most people would think about the story of Noah's Ark, like, oh, it's just some crazy old horse shit. But it's most likely they're basing it on something that happened very rapidly in their area.
Yeah. Now, of course, we're most familiar with the story of Noah's Ark, because of the Judeo-Christian tradition. But there are literally hundreds of stories from all over the world that parallel the story of Noah. Deucalion, Xisthros, Utnapishtim, Manu. The list goes on and on of these culture heroes that somehow had foreknowledge of this impending disaster and were able to take steps to preserve themselves, their family, some diverse cross-section of species, and they all have this, similarity. They all parallel. Now, my way of looking at it is this. Okay, we now know from the hard geological record that massive floods have taken place on the surface of the earth. Massive floods, right? Beyond anything that we have even imagined, right, up until a decade or a few decades ago. They're real. Okay, on the other hand, we have stories and myths and legends repeatedly. It's probably the most ubiquitous of all the stories that we've inherited from the past, is this story of this gigantic world-destroying flood that occurred, right? Now, on the one hand, we have the hard geological record, which shows there were giant floods. Then we have these epic tales and myths from all over the world about giant floods, Do we now dismiss those floods, those stories out of hand and say, oh, that's just superstitious, pre-literate, pseudoscientific nonsense? I think we'd be making a big mistake to do that.